Am I the only person who was disappointed by the final 3 episodes of season 3 of The Legend of Vox Machina? I understand supporting Critical Role and saying that the show is great and giving good reviews and enjoying overall the entire show. But everywhere I look, everybody is saying that the final 3 episodes were an amazing conclusion to the Chroma Conclave arc. And I just don't agree with that. Now, I don't want people to get a misconception of what my honest opinions are, because this is a criticism of the show. I don't want there to be a lot of jokes or a lot of distractions, and so this is going to be a more serious video, and I'll try to be very concise with my words. I know I said there wouldn't be distractions, but I just really like my shirt, and so I wanted to change and put it on. Again, no distractions. I'm going to have this video be in like 3 segments. The first is stuff that I did enjoy about the show, because I don't dislike all of the final 3 episodes. That would be crazy. The second bit are things that I was a little disappointed on, but overall didn't ruin anything, and I found it fine. And the final part is what really actually made me make this video. So, things I enjoyed. I enjoyed that Keyleth split off from the group, and that everybody else split off into their own little side quests, or whatever. It was very fun. Vex and Vax going off to reunite with themselves and take on Ripley was really, really entertaining. The fight on the boat was absolutely fantastic. Overall, the entire arc, that cat person that they found, everything was super cool. And Vex realizing that even after defeating Thordak and Ripley, she still feels empty, was amazing. And the fact that they got the gun to find a way to bring back Percy and have Orthax be another return villain. I loved both of those parts. Fun change from the campaign and kept it fresh. Pike getting Allura so that they could teleport to get Kaylee so that Kaylee could wake Scanlan up from the coma was really beautiful. But this does segue into 2 things that I'm just a little sad about. The first one is that Kaylee's song didn't make a full appearance. They kind of changed it to be like Circle the World, which was a cool rock song, but the entire season they were foreshadowing this beautiful little love melody from Scanlan to his daughter, and we got a glimpse of that, but we didn't get the full thing. It changed to this pop song, and that's cool, but I was really looking forward to hearing the whole calming melody. But we didn't really get Kaylee's song. We got Circle the World, which is cool, but I wanted Kaylee's song. And the second thing that made me just sad is that Bard's Lament, the giant moment from Campaign 1, wasn't included. I've seen lots of comments from people explaining why they feel Bard's Lament shouldn't have been included, like this one from Zetablox. There's no hate to Zetablox or anyone who shares this opinion or gave their thoughts on this topic, but I wanted to refute it a little. Here's the quote. Zeta says, "I know the exclusion of Bard's Lament has upsetted some campaign-focused viewers," and then later on says, "I disagree with those sentiments. It just didn't make sense at that point for Scanlan to explode." Now, I disagree with Zeta's response in one way. Zeta is assuming that I'm upset that Bard's Lament wasn't in the show at all. That's not exactly true. I am not upset that they didn't shoehorn Bard's Lament into season 3. I'm just upset that we haven't seen it. Like, it's totally correct that if they shoehorned Bard's Lament into the finale, the last episode, it would have just felt out of place. They didn't show Scanlan having drug problems or constantly being belittled and talked down to by other members of the party. The relationship between Scanlan and the rest of Vox Machina in this show is at a much better place than it was during the campaign. They chose to exclude Bard's Lament by having Scanlan have a better relationship with everybody, and so that they wouldn't end the season on a very sour and confusing note. Because they didn't know if this was going to be the final season or not. I fully understand that Bard's Lament would not have fit in this arc, in this season. I'm not sad because they chose not to include it in this season, but I am still sad that we have not gotten Bard's Lament. Now, overall, all of that stuff that I just complained about are kind of small things that I'm not super upset about. But this next segment kind of ruined the final arc for me. And it's one aspect that I didn't really touch on, which is Keyleth. Now, I don't want anybody to think that I am just hating on Keyleth. I love Keyleth's character. It's a very cool idea to have someone who is going to become a leader one day have self-confidence issues and go on a journey to figure out who she is and how she can better communicate with others or stand her ground. That's a beautiful story arc. I'm just kind of sad how they did this story arc. Now, I don't want anybody to think that I am just hating on Keyleth or Marisha or anything like that. I'm fully aware that there is a huge problem during Campaign 1 where she just got a ton of hate for terribly toxic reasons. I want to make sure that I am not doing that. And so, to make sure I am elaborating myself very concisely and clearly, I will be reading this section from a script, just to avoid being too rambly and other stuff. As I briefly mentioned at the start of this video, I enjoyed the fact that Keyleth left Vox Machina in episode 10 to figure out her own thoughts. But after that, I started to have small problems with her arc. That's not to say that I dislike the message behind the journey. Vox Machina constantly dismissed Keyleth's ideas and skepticism about Raishan throughout the entire season. As the season went on, her love for Vax grew steadily, but simultaneously, Vax was still dismissing her again and again to go with the easier route. Remember that moment in the tree during episode 1? He tells her he will stand beside her, and then the next day he says, "What choice do we have?" when Keyleth mentioned they were just listening to Raishan. Her frustration and anger are very natural, so taking this character that lacks her voice and lacks leadership and taking her on a journey of self-empowerment so that she is closer to leading her people is very moving and powerful. So, why do I dislike it? Keyleth has her father set up a council meeting of the Ashari, and she speaks her mind and stands her ground. Then, when Uvenda disagrees, she debates with her, but turns away after Uvenda repeatedly says no. She goes, thinks about her mother, comes back, and gives a different speech, and this time convinces the others to allow her to perform the ritual. I have two things that makes this scene not work for me. 1. Keyleth did not accurately describe how dangerous Raishan could be. Keyleth doesn't know Raishan's plan, that is true, but she still didn't elaborate well. It took Thordak taking over nearly a whole continent, threatening the entire world with an army of his wormlings, to get just the Fire Nation to join the assault of Iman. Uvenda's point of Raishan dying of the disease is left unanswered. Keyleth doesn't mention that Raishan took Thordak's corpse at all, and so, overall, I just feel like Keyleth didn't explain how big of a threat this was, and so that gave Uvenda more leverage in the conversation, and then just suddenly the conversation switches and everybody agrees with Keyleth, and so that was confusing to me. The second point, a large argument Keyleth made in her second argument was that she needed to hear from the other members of the council instead of just Uvenda. I like this point, but it didn't feel authentic because we never saw any sign that the other members did not agree with Uvenda. The only line mentioned by another member of the Ashari was at the very beginning, when an Earth Ashari said that she should be on her Aramente. This sounds like he is on Uvenda's side, but then Keyleth brings up the fact that Uvenda is the only one who gave her voice in the first half of the debate, and suddenly everyone else is like, yeah, you don't speak for us, Uvenda. If we were shown a disgruntled look from one member towards Uvenda, the scene would have worked better for me. Because, I don't know, it just came out of left field that, hey, suddenly everybody else thinks that Uvenda shouldn't speak for them. They didn't give any signs that Uvenda was commanding the speech without their approval. Next, I was going to have a segment about Keyleth's Earth ritual, but before releasing this video, I watched the last 3 episodes again and focused on Keyleth's scenes to make sure I actually agreed with my thoughts, to see if I found something different in the episodes. And during the Earth ritual scene, some things clicked the second time, But my only complaint is that the teacher should have given better warning before the ritual. Like, warn Keyleth that the entire events of Exandria will invade her mind and try to pull her into the earth before she's turning to stone. Instead, she just went, it's a dangerous ritual. My biggest problem with the final episodes is the battle with Raishan. Keyleth was the only person to fight Raishan. Grog hit her once. I'm sure Vax and Vex hit her a few times with projectiles. But as depicted, her undead form could not be damaged in that way. Pike tried her fire blast, but it didn't work. Now, all that Keyleth stuff, again, I don't want people to think that I'm just hating on Keyleth. Most of my complaints was about the scenes and not about what Keyleth was saying. I don't think I'm being toxic. I hope you also agree with that. But anyway, my biggest gripe is that the final battle with Raishan was just disappointing to me. This was the climax of the season. The first 9 episodes were them being guided by Raishan to take down Thordak just to be stabbed in the back. And then suddenly Raishan's plan comes to fruition. It's like, it's a secret villain twist, but most people can see it coming. And it ended with just Keyleth using her new power to 1v1 Raishan. Keyleth using her new power is not the problem. That way of killing her was really cool. Giving the disease back was, that's very awesome. The problem is that it was just Keyleth. She didn't need anybody else there. If Keyleth went, I'm going to read off of my monitor now. If Keyleth went, I have this plan. I'll use the disease from her old body to kill her. And the other said, no, what if the poison kills you? And then Keyleth stands her ground, which was her entire arc, and just goes, no, I will do this. You need to trust me. You guys lure Raishan to her old body and distract her. And they do that, and Raishan kills Keyleth, just like they did in the final episode, and the others are disgruntled, and then they're fighting back against Raishan, but their efforts are futile, and as they're on their last breaths, Keyleth suddenly comes up from the ground and disperses the poison back into Raishan. I would have loved that. I would have completely lost it. It would have been amazing. But instead, everyone else is barricaded from joining the fight. Vax wants Keyleth to run, but she says, no, I've got a plan. You need to trust me, or whatever. But it doesn't matter if Vax trusts her or not. He can't do anything. So his trust is irrelevant. Then Keyleth just goes, tries to hurt her with her fire elemental, avoids Raishan's attacks, and then just single-handedly dies, and then immediately, very quickly, comes back up and redistributes the poison. There's no giant drama behind it. I was very disappointed. Like, am I the only one who was disappointed by the end of the Chroma Conclave arc? Like, everything else in these 3 episodes were really cool. I thought this was going to be, like, the main focus, and then, healing Percy, yeah, that comes after, once they're done with all of the terrible stuff. But, like, it just felt anticlimactic to me. Like, were my expectations too high? I never watched all of the Chroma Conclave arc in Campaign 1, so I didn't come in with any expectations. And again, a large part of this video was about Keyleth, and that's just because it felt, like, forced. It ended up undermining Raishan's power and Raishan's trickery. To elaborate, my biggest complaint, to kill Thordak, it took Vox Machina, Fire Ashari, Earthbreaker Groon, and a bunch of his monks, the guards of Whitestone, Kasha, Zara, Kima, Allura, Gilmore, and an entire army of Seangorn elves with magical ballistas. That's what it took to stop Thordak. But to stop Raishan, it only took Keyleth. Not even Vox Machina. Just Keyleth. Overall, I still really enjoyed the majority of the season. The drama within character relationships and the introduction of new places, people, enemies, allies, items. Very cool. My phone ran out of storage. Where was I? Enemies? Very cool. But man, I did not like the conclusion of Raishan's villainous arc. What are your opinions? Based on public reaction, Seems like most people really enjoyed the season, and I don't want to take that away from anybody. If you really enjoyed Keyleth's character arc, that's great. It's a very powerful and moving arc, but to me, it just missed on a few different areas. And my opinion could be very niche. Maybe nobody agrees with me. Maybe I'm not seeing certain aspects clearly. If you want to, please tell me why you really enjoyed Keyleth's arc, or maybe tell me why certain other opinions of mine feel different to you. But please just don't say that my opinions are dumb, or don't call me names like Stinky Butt or Doo Doo Head. That's really immature, you guys. Don't do that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed me ranting about these random topics. I really don't want to sound like I dislike just Keyleth. I don't. I do like Keyleth. That's honest. I didn't like Keyleth's moments in these final 3 episodes, per se. I did love when she came out of the sand. That was hilarious. Hilarious. It's great. But overall, show's great. Yell at me if you want. Please don't. Have a nice day.